All right, let's dive into something that's at the very core of who we are. How does our brain take a simple, fleeting moment and turn it into a memory that can last an entire lifetime?
I mean, think about it. We all have those vivid memories, right? A certain smell, a song, a feeling that's just locked in. But what's actually happening in our brains to make that stick? How does it decide what's important enough to keep? Well, here's the kicker, and it's genuinely surprising. While the experience itself obviously happens when you're awake, the real heavy lifting, the actual construction of that long-term memory, that all happens when you're fast asleep. Okay, so every memory has to start somewhere. It all begins with a spark. An experience lights up a specific group of neurons in your brain, leaving behind an initial trace. But what even is that trace? What are we talking about here?
You might think your brain just grows a new cell for every new memory, but that's not how it works. Way back in the 1890s, this brilliant neuroanatomist, Santiago Ramon y Cajal, he figured it out. He theorized that memories aren't new brain cells, but stronger connections between the ones we already have. It's not about adding more bricks to the wall, it's about making the mortar between them rock solid.
So how does the brain start forging that connection? Well, it uses a process that's kind of like hitting quick save on a computer file. It gives the connection a fast, temporary power-up. Let's break down how that works. It's a process called long-term potentiation, or LTP for short. Now, this is one of the biggest ideas in all of neuroscience. It was first discovered in the hippocampus, which you know is a major hub for memory, and it's basically the cellular mechanism for learning. It's the biological reason why practice makes perfect. When a pathway is used a lot, it gets stronger for a long time. And there's this classic saying that sums it up perfectly. Neurons that fire together, wire together. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to walk through a dense forest. The first time, it's really hard going. But if you walk that same path over and over, you beat down the grass, you clear the branches, and the path becomes easier and faster to travel. LTP is your brain clearing that neural pathway. So, down at the microscopic level, here's what's happening. An initial signal might be pretty weak, but then a new, important experience sends a whole burst of high-frequency signals down that same path. This barrage rapidly strengthens the connection. The result? In the future, signals can zip down that pathway much more easily. That's our quick save. But here's the catch. That quick save, LTP, it's powerful, but it's not permanent enough on its own. It fades. To make a memory last for years or even decades, the brain has to do something much, much deeper. It needs to make physical changes. So, this is the big question, right? How does the brain go from a temporary electrical boost to a permanent physical structure? The answer is incredible. It takes us from the connection between cells all the way down into the nucleus of the cell to our actual genetic code. And the way it does this is just so clever. The brain basically uses molecular highlighters and sticky notes to tag our DNA. Now, these tags don't change our genes, but they act like instructions for the cell, telling it which genes to turn on and which to ignore to build a stronger memory. These are things like DNA methylation and histone modifications. You can just think of them as on-off switches. When a memory needs to be saved for good, these processes flip the on switch for very specific genes. And those genes start producing the proteins needed to literally build a bigger, stronger, more permanent connection. This is how you stabilize a memory for the long haul. Okay, so we've got our quick save with LTP, and we've got the genetic instructions all tagged and ready to go. But when does the brain actually do this deep, permanent saving? This brings us to the most important part of the story, what I like to call the brain's night shift. For a long time, scientists had a couple of different ideas about this. One was the reset hypothesis, the idea that sleep just kind of weakens most connections to save energy, sort of a factory reset. But now there's overwhelming evidence for the active consolidation hypothesis. This says that sleep is an incredibly busy time when your brain is actively replaying, strengthening, and filing away the important stuff from your day. And this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. During deep, non-REM sleep, that slow-wave sleep stage, your brain doesn't just shut off. It replays. The hippocampus literally coordinates a playback of the neural activity from the things you learned while you were awake. Okay, this quote looks a little dense, I know, but here's what it means in simple terms. The exact same neurons that fired when you had an experience fire again while you sleep, in the same order, but sped up, like watching a video of your day on fast forward. And it's this constant replay that really etches the memory into your brain. So your brain's night shift really has two key phases. First, during that deep non-REM sleep, you get the replay. Important memories get reactivated and tagged. Then, later during REM sleep, the brain really gets to work. It starts expressing those genes we talked about, building the proteins, and physically locking those connections in place. It's this beautiful 1-2 punch.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that sleep is not downtime. For learning and memory, sleep is showtime. The entire chemical environment inside your brain fundamentally changes to make all of this happen. Seriously, the chemical cocktail inside your synapses is completely different when you're awake compared to when you're asleep. During the day, the chemistry is all geared up for strengthening connections for that LTP process. But at night, the whole system shifts to focus on refining and stabilizing those connections. And the sheer scale of this change, it's just staggering. Research shows that roughly half, 50% of all the little molecular on-off switches on your synaptic proteins, they cycle with the time of day. That is a massive chemical shift, from a brain that's built to learn new things during the day to a brain that's built to consolidate them at night. So, when you put it all together, you can see why sleep is so essential. It cleans up the irrelevant noise from the day. It reactivates and strengthens the important new connections. It kicks off the gene expression to make memories stable, and it helps weave that new information into everything you already know.
So let's just say it one more time, loud and clear. Sleep is not a passive state of rest for your brain. It is an active, dynamic, and absolutely essential process for learning and for making you, well, you.
And that leaves us with a really cool question, for you personally. If your brain uses the night to consolidate and strengthen what you did during the day, then every night is an opportunity. So, what are you going to teach your brain tonight?